Okay, here we go. Just give me a couple minutes, guys. I'm just trying to get some people to check in here. I'm going to give our friend Anthony Apel a call in a couple minutes. We're going to talk a little Supercross. He's the points leader. It's pretty cool. Maybe some vintage bikes and whatever else we have that we feel like talking about. After all, it's going to be a bench racing session tonight. So give me a minute. See if we can get a couple people on. All right. Dude,
Jim, what's happening?
Dude, how you doing?
Doing good. How you doing today?
Good, man. I'm actually testing. I was testing out some stuff on my computer, and I'm actually live on Facebook and on YouTube right now, dude.
Nice.
Talk about crazy. That's kind of cool, right? Being live on
cool.
on two platforms.
Absolutely, that's the way to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of like I'm looking at my computer screen, dude, and seriously, I have two cameras with my ugly mutt in front of them. It's like, what the hell? It's hard enough to look at yourself when you're talking on the phone anyway, and to know that people are watching, you know.
Yeah, Jim, you and Dave, you guys do a great job with the show and everything, and it's definitely hard to broadcast. I know when I do my videos and stuff like that, I post up.
Yeah.
I always double check my videos, and I'm like, well, did I look right? Did I make any weird faces?
Yeah, but though, when you do it and you do it live, it's almost like, do you ever, when you first started doing it, did you ever get like stage fright and start to say, shit, man, what did I just say? What was the path that I wanted to go? Where was my thoughts going,
Absolutely.
We're getting a few viewers on now. I think I got like 7 or 8 on this page. I know my brother just logged on, so I know he's going to share it out because he always shares. He shares the crap out of it every time he sees us live. And next thing you know, you start seeing the live audience just build and build and build and build.
Yeah, the one night I remember I looked down and we were up to like 65 guys.
Well, this past Tuesday, we had Dan Plord from MX23 on, and we were talking about how he was taking over Rocket Raceway in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he added me on Facebook and on the friends request there, and I can't say enough about all these guys that have tracks and that are doing stuff, and it's great for the community, and we really need it all.
Right.
I'm glad that somebody, a part of the community of ours, went down, bought that place, and is doing something, with it versus just letting it go. Right.
And I mean, and the cool thing too is, he's got big plans. He's going to change a few things around. He's going to do this, do that. It's like, man, I think his opening weekend down there is going to be big. It's especially where he announced he's going to give free ride day to anybody who comes down on, I think it's March 28th. The first day is Saturday, March 28th. That's pretty sick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's the whole part about our community, it's giving back like that. And that means a lot, Granted, it is a haul, but even so, it's worth it. It's always nice to get in a car and make memories with all your friends and family.
Yep. I have a feeling we're going to have a couple of those trips this season. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be great. So,
absolutely. Especially with Rewind, it's great to see how many guys are building bikes and doing things.
It's crazy, isn't it?
I've been, I got the bug, and then now I'm kind of like passing on to other guys that, I grew up racing with. But I'm like, yeah, buy a vintage bike, come out to you and go. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have an awesome weekend. You got to do it.
Absolutely, man. And if we can all park together, I mean, dude, we're going to take that place over.
Oh, yeah.
Paul's going to have to reach out to the Robinsons and tell them, you know what, we're coming. We need some room.
We need a lot of room.
My brother's live. My brother's live. He just says, yeah, camping, fireworks, food vendors, bonfire. Absolutely. You know what?
Yeah, I'm tempted. I'm going to pack up my old turntables too. I'll probably break those out.
There you go.
Really get the party going.
There you go. So for any of you guys that are out there watching right now on online, I am streaming live to Facebook and I'm streaming live to YouTube at the same time. So I have my guest this evening for bench racing session. I got to get it out. It's tongue tied. Anthony Apel. He's out in New York, and Anthony. You know what? I'm just gonna say it. You know, the fantasy group. Dude, you're freaking leading, dude. You're 399. The closest person has 5 points behind you at 394. You got the number one spot, dude.
That's not bad for all I'm guessing. I haven't watched a race at all this year. I've watched bits and pieces of races the whole season so far, and it's been all reviews of last week's results. And like I said before, you know, the biggest thing is, you know, watching racing.
Right.
You know, for me, growing up, '98 when I started in the series and watching everything, you always had that one or two guys.
Yeah.
Now it's not one or two guys anymore. Now you got a good 12, 13 guys that are all top competitors that at any given moment, somebody's going to drop the hammer and they're going to take off with it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I think we're starting to see it. I mean, Eli's in his swing, usually gets in a little bit later, but Eli's in that swing where he's just like, you know, in a zone. It's crazy to see how fast that guy can go when he really wants to. You know, when he doesn't get in his own head, that guy flies. It's ridiculously cool. And Adam, I mean, come on, it's only a matter of time before Adam wins a race.
Yeah, you know, and that's another thing. Like, I've been following him for a long time. I remember when he made his debut down at Budds Creek. You know, I mean, what was he, 14 years old or 15 years old? And, you know, it was, even that, you know, he was up in the top 10 in his first race. And then, you know, he started beating back with a crash. But, you know, it's really good to see him up there, too, mixing and mingling with everybody. Right. You know?
Right. Hey, did you see the other day I shared a video of that race, Budds Creek, when him and Cooper Webb were going at it, and how he got a good start in the first moto and he was up front for a while.
Yeah.
And then the second moto, he was just gassed in the second moto. But no, dude, that was sick. Seeing these guys come through, man. It's like being the age. I know I got you by a few years, but being the ages that we are, I mean, you think back and how many generations of riders have we seen come through the pro ranks? You know, we saw them on minis. I mean, shit, dude, I'm going to date myself here. I was at the Mini O's back in 1987, the one and only time that I've ever ridden a motorcycle somewhere out of the Northeast. And I think Ricky Carmichael was in the 50 class.
Yep.
It was sick. And now it's like, he's retired, man. He's the GOAT and he's retired. It's like, how cool is that? That, you know, we've seen somebody's whole career unfold.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, definitely hats off to, you know, Chad Reed. Look how he's in his mid-30s and he's still whacking away at it and making the mains.
Yeah. Hey,
you know, that says a lot. I mean,
that's incredible.
You know, he was there too.
K-Dub actually retired for a while when he broke his femur on the Suzuki, and then he came back on a Honda.
Yep.
I remember that. I remember his deal was he bought his own bikes, and he specifically said he wanted to ride a Honda 450, and that's what he was going to do. And he was the one that broke up Ricky's perfect season that year.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's really cool to watch all these guys whacking away at it, you know, and then the technology is just completely different from what it used to be.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
If anything, I think the playing field is a little more equal.
Yeah.
You know, like we've all talked about, especially doing these vintage builds. There was a big difference in bikes.
Yep.
Back in the day compared to today, you know, and today you could jump on just about any machine out there and it almost feels the same.
Right. Or, you know what, with a matter of changing your bars around, maybe a lever position, you could pretty much take any 450 and you know, make it comfortable without having to change stuff around. I remember back then, shit, man, we had to take a bike. If you were a Cowie rider, dude, you were a Cowie rider. If you were a Honda rider, any other brand, you'd have to change bars. You'd have to change all kinds of stuff. just to be
Oh,
able
that's a
to,
big significant difference. Yeah,
yeah,
because of
just
the
to be able
weight
to
and
make it
everything else of
comfortable.
the design of the chassis.
Yep. You know, it's funny, we're talking about the old bikes. The other day, I was thinking about it on my way to work, and I'm thinking, how some of the guys that have never gotten a chance to ride the older bikes, they'll jump on one and they'll try to like, oh my God, this thing turns so good. Like for example, my 89. That bike
Yep.
turns so good. Well, yeah, but you know what though? When you think back, when I was racing those things, the Hondas and the Suzukis were the bikes that turned good. The Kawi's were the stable bikes that you had to like crank over to get around.
Oh yeah.
And now you think about it compared to the new ones, it's just like, man, you could just rip those things. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's night and day difference, and then also, like I said, with the geometry of the headset and
Right.
how they weight them out, that was a big thing too. And then, the manufacturers with the suspension, either you got good suspension on a bike, but no motor,
Yeah.
or you got a great motor, and then there was no suspension, and the thing wouldn't turn; it just goes straight.
Yep. And I mean go ahead.
Yeah, there was no balance, from all the stories, talking to a lot of a lot of you older guys. It's really nice to hear, what I have now as a young guy, to see what I ride. I'm really grateful for it all because you hear the stories of back in the day of frames breaking, the bike would go like a rocket ship down a straightaway, but yet you couldn't get it to turn.
Right. Or you couldn't get it to stop depending on what kind of brakes it had.
That was another thing, braking power. That was a big difference too.
Wait, just wait until you get on that KTM 400 and you start ripping down the straightaway with the twin shocks and the drum brakes and everything. You're gonna be like, "Good Lord, what did I do?"
Dude, I'm telling you, the bike's so clean. I don't even know if I want to ride it.
Oh, hey, from what I've seen and what people have told me though about some of these vintage bikes, one of the coolest things is when you get out there. And you're riding them, the tracks don't get quite as rough because it's just a bunch of us out there having fun. So you don't get the gigantic holes and most of the stuff gets tamed down a little bit. I know I watched that video of Stanton talking about the Daytona Supercross or the vintage class. So he said everything's rounded off. And even right now, he says at his age, he doesn't want to jump the same shit that he jumped when he was younger, when he had to. And I got to tell you, man, at 50, I'm 52. And when I start seeing some of these big jumps, it scares the hell out of me. I was watching a couple of posts from Supercross, from the Supercross Futures, right? And dude, did you see the one? It was last weekend. It was in Tampa. Guy came over the finish line jump, and then just like he friggin' launched off the next jump and over the berm. Like didn't make the berm at all. Just like launched to the floor of the stadium. And I'm thinking, man. That's crazy. All these guys, it's like these tracks, how much toned down are they from the night before when the pros ride,
Right. Right. And that's another thing. Motocross, even our outdoor stuff, our motocross tracks have leaned on the supercross end of things.
Yeah.
And we're watching more and more, horrible injuries happen.
Yep.
People guys getting paralyzed. I mean, broken necks, and it, like not one of us. We all know the risk, when we get on that bike, but we never go out there with the intentions of hitting something that's 120 foot triple or whatever it is, and then landing wrong and whatever, and getting hurt.
Yep.
We never think about that, and I think if they toned down the sport a little bit when it came down to the jumps, you probably have a bigger outcome to an extent, because there's a lot of guys out there that, one of our local pros, Mike Stryker, I grew up with him in the 80 class, and we moved up the line. And, he was riding for Team KTM for a little while, and from 2007 to 13.
Yep.
Great guy. And I talked to him. I said, Mike, how was it? Really, how was it to be in the stadiums, and how was it going, out of the rigs and everything else? And he told me, he says, listen, when you're riding for a factory, the pressure and what they do to you, it's unreal. They want you to win. That's it's a job.
Yeah.
The fun of it's out of it, and it's a scary thing when you're constantly going up, lap after lap after lap, hitting these jumps, and you're getting tired.
And,
feel like you're getting tired.
yeah, and not only that, you see some of the ruts that develop in the faces, dude. Okay, there's what I said. The big jumps scare me now. At 52 years old, the ruts I think in the faces of these jumps scare me even more. You know?
I think the biggest thing that scares me was never the rut going into the face; it's landing in the rut coming off the jump.
Oh yeah,
that was the scariest thing for me is getting cross rutted as you were landing.
right, right.
Yeah, because in the beginning I was having a hard time, following the ruts up the faces, and then I finally figured out how to do it. You
Yeah.
The main rut that you're going after and stare at the lip of it and go for it.
Yep, absolutely.
But when you're landing, it's a different story then.
Yeah, if your front wheel is slightly turned at all, you might as well face it. You're going to eat a bunch of handlebar, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But no, that it's true, and I think with the kids now with the jumps, they're so used to it because they've been groomed. That's all they've been riding since they were young, so they don't think twice about it. I mean, we had the things that we did, we wouldn't think twice about hammering down a set of like 3-foot whoops and stuff like that because that's what we were used to when we were younger and that's what we grew up riding. And I think it's the same thing for a lot of these kids. It's just a matter of when you get to the stadiums and stuff, I don't think that they really get too much of an opportunity to practice on that stuff, and
no, and that's another thing. And then also, we're seeing it more and more and more that
mm-hmm.
Guys are complaining once that track gets rough and it's not a highway anymore. You'll watch them; they'll pack up.
Right.
Go to even go to South Lake on an open practice day by 1 o'clock. Guys are leaving.
Yeah,
they're not staying around, and it's not even that bad.
Yep.
Normally I'll try to stay out there until 4 o'clock and. Until Rick throws me out. I think the rougher the track, the better it becomes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, and that's dates back to the growing up with us and not having groomed places to practice. You just keep going and let it get rougher and rougher and rougher, and that's what we rode on every single week was just the rough tracks.
Yeah, and sand pits and
right.
gravel pits, whatever kind of land that you had access to, that's what you rode on.
Right.
That's what you practiced on.
Yep. I have to agree with you on that 100%. It's crazy when you start seeing, people complaining because a track is, rough and they want it all smoothed out on a practice day. And it's kind of like, dude, that's going to make you better. I mean, granted, maybe that's just my old mindset, but I think riding on that stuff and riding on a boned out track is the way to go because it definitely helps you work on the skill set you have on your motorcycle.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as we all evolve, because we watched. I got to watch the 4-strokes come in.
Yes.
That was kind of cool, and it hurt too because my dad, he didn't have much money as I was growing up, and so I was on a 125, and then here come all the 250Fs.
Right.
And there was no comparison. If you weren't fast on a 125, it was hard to make the names.
Yeah, it was.
In the 125 class, just because the 250s were just blowing you away.
Yep.
I
didn't have
until the electric bikes move.
Oh yeah.
That's. I know this is going to be a big controversy, ordeal with the e-bikes, but it's going to be. It's going to be a big movement, and especially my son now with the KTM 50E. If you really think about it, I could buy my kid one bike versus 350s.
Yeah, and the thing is you may have to put a battery in it sooner or later, but I guarantee you're going to get a lot longer out of the battery than you're going to get out of like 2 or 3 top ends.
Right.
And it's kind of one of those things like the no air filters, no maintenance, things like that. I think that's going to probably make it easier on the parents sometimes when they're trying to prep the bikes for the races, make sure it's all done and charged up. I mean, it's tough to say. No matter what we get out there for motors and power in the bikes, it's just a matter of you just got to ride what you love riding.
Yeah.
If you're a two-stroke guy, you ride a 2-stroke. If you like a 4-stroke, ride a 4-stroke. Who cares, man? Just get out there and ride. That's the big thing is on 2 wheels.
That's all that matters. At the end of the day, that's what we're all about. Doesn't matter what color you ride. we're all about the same thing, and that's the love of motorcycles.
Right on, right on. Hey, I'm glad. I was just thinking too. You had mentioned Rick and Selfick a little bit ago, so I don't know if anybody's watching that was planning to go on Sunday, because they initially announced that there was going to be an open practice, but this morning Rick posted that it is canceled. The temperatures that had dropped overnight froze up a couple of sections, and it was pretty ugly. So they did put a post out that open practice is not going to happen on Sunday at Southwick. So I don't know the status of Ken's. I don't even know what it is. It's an uphill sand drag, I think he's calling it. That's supposed to be something tomorrow. I don't know the status on that. That would be something that if anybody was watching and wanted to go to, you might need to message Ken directly, or message the WIC 338 motocross page. They might be able to feed people more information on that. Around here, I do know that Wareham announced today that they're open on Saturday and Sunday. Dude, it's going to be like 50 degrees out on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful day out there and sunny too. So.
Yep. I'm actually thinking I got to take a ride up to Ronnie's tomorrow and go see John Levesque and pick up a few things. Both Dan Leclerc, my buddy Dan, and myself, we're going to head up there early, leave his house probably like 6:30 in the morning, because it's a 3-hour ride to Ronnie's. But we're going to get up there and get some parts and get back home again and do a little wrenching. But I'm thinking about taking my KTM out on Sunday and going to ride a little bit up at my old stomping grounds, as long as they're thawed out up in Norfolk. That wouldn't be a bad day.
There you go. Yeah, we've been having a really blessed winter. Barely any snow. And, we just have this cold streak that just moved in for the last couple of days.
Yep.
And, but for the most part, it's been a really, really nice winter. And I see you guys always posting up on the mountain bikes too. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
whenever you're out there riding.
That's something that, I picked it up this year, and I've just become passionate about it. It's like I just love getting out there on two wheels, and it just so happens that it's been mountain biking every week. It's at this point in my life with work and everything like that, it's so much easier just to throw my mountain bike in the back of my truck and all my gear in the morning, take it to work with me, and then meet up with a bunch of old moto guys and go pedaling for like one night a week and do 8 to 10 miles. You get a good workout. There's a lot more, BS going on out there, and everybody busting on each other, trying to one up, different rock climbs and stuff like that. So it's almost like the old days when you would go practicing with everybody during the week on your moto. You go pound out your laps, and then you go to the sand pit and see who can, play ride the best.
Oh yeah. It's great for training too. You get endurance. You're out on the bike, and not only that, you're not spending 2 days on, going out to the track, washing your bike, or going over your machine. 2 hours, and you're up and going, and you got the whole day to do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for us now at this age, I think that's key, just to be able to spend time on two wheels, stay balanced, stay working on your fitness. I've dropped some pounds just from starting it, and I mean it's inspired me to get going and work in my basement on. I got a spin bike down there. I got a row machine down there. I got a weight bench down there. Just get down and get working, and try to get some resemblance of shape other than round back. Speaking of working out, dude, how's your knee, man? You got that operated on a while ago now.
Yeah, so November 6th, I went in for ACL reconstruction, and I had a little bit of a meniscus tear on my lateral side.
Yep.
So they got that fixed, and then I went 6 years without having an ACL and having that tear on my meniscus. And I was pretty strong for the most part, and some of you know what I do for a living. I work at Itsjimsfault. I'm a truck driver. And, handling food and running up and down a ramp all day and up and downstairs really beats you up.
Yeah,
I think it's worse than moto, but by far.
Absolutely.
It was going really good. I went back to work about 3 weeks ago, and then last Friday I had my first hiccup. I was in the city, and I was doing a run that I'd never done before, and there was a lot of stairs, and next thing I know, I looked down, and my knee was the size of a grapefruit. Around 10 o'clock. I had my brace on. I didn't feel any pop. I didn't do anything to it.
Yep.
And then around noontime, next thing I know, it's the size of a cantaloupe. So I must have bursted one of my water bags in my knee is the only thing that I could think.
Yeah.
Just repetitive motion.
Yeah.
So I went to the doctors, and they checked it out. They tugged on it. It's strong as it's ever been. I mean, I'm feeling really, really good. I just got to push myself a little more here and there into the gym. It's kind of hard, especially with work.
Yeah.
But we're recovering. We're recovering, and then I reached out to Gary Frick, great guy.
Oh yeah.
Started talking to him a couple of years ago, and he's been going through the same issue with his knee.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't get the luck of using his own body part. I had my hamstring used as a graft, and he had to use a cadaver.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot longer with a cadaver versus your own body part to take and heal. So, I was telling him a couple of things that was going on, and he was like, "No, that's normal. You're going to have your good days and your bad days." So, a lot of support from Gary, and it's great. And
Yeah.
like I said, it's all part of the moto community.
Yep.
How we all come together.
Yep. Dude, Gary's awesome people, man. I mean, for the most part, everybody so far in the moto community, everybody bonds, and they support each other when I wouldn't even say, in times of need, everybody gets together and helps out. But just if somebody's down or injured, just like you're saying with Gary, it's just give you advice, talk about maybe something that they've been through, what they're experiencing. It's like the people are so cool, and virtually everyone out here, there's somebody that's experienced whatever it is that you're going through. There's somebody that's done it and come out on the other side, and can probably talk a little bit of wisdom into you, about what to expect and stuff. It's really cool the way that that all comes together.
Oh yeah. And Lee too. Lee's going through the whole deal with his shoulder. And,
absolutely.
I reached out to Lee, and I prayed for him, and I said I wish you the best recovery. And then he, after he got out of the surgery, he reached out to me and told me that he was in better shape than what he originally thought he was. So that was even greater news to hear that from him.
What's really cool is the two of them pushing each other.
Yeah, that's probably the best. And when I was at the reunion, there was nothing but jokes from both of those guys.
Yep.
It was so funny to hear it all. And I think Dave was adding to it because he kept on adding a couple words here and there, and then they would fire him up.
It was great. It was great because Dave took both of them down there to the reunion. They rode with him in the truck, and all the way down there was like different pictures and stuff of this is all you're going to see of me, and Gary had his shirt on with his numbers or something like that. And it's cool. And then of course they got on about the pizza, and I guess Dave was the one that had 2 or 3 slices of pizza, and neither one of them let him forget it. So of course, as we all know from the last lap a few weeks ago when John sent pizzas over, pizza is my kryptonite, man. I must have eaten like 5 pieces of the stuff. It was crazy. It's like, dude, just send 1 pizza over, not 3, because if there's 3, it's pizza. I'm gonna eat it.
Hey Jim, look at it like this: you're gonna go a lot faster going down the
hill. Yeah, but lately it's been pedaling, so it's harder to pedal up the hill if I eat more pizza. Going down the hill's great. Going up the hill sucks.
Time for an e-bike, buddy.
Yeah, right. Oh man. So back to the vintage bikes. How's that 400 doing? How are you doing on it? You getting?
It's done. It's actually it's done.
That's cool.
I got a lot of help from different sources. Roger down at Icon Suspension in PA.
Yep.
I called the guy up. I told him what was going on, what I was doing.
That's so cool.
He wanted everything he could to help me out. So big shout out to Roger over at Icon Suspension.
Yep.
He definitely did us justice. And the best part about it all is I got Rebound, something that a lot of shocks that didn't have that back then.
Right.
Rebound.
Yeah.
So now on my 70s vintage bike, I got Rebound, and I don't have to pay over $1,200 from Olin's or
right.
to get that. So big bluff on that. So
I remember back then, Olin's was the hot setup. That was like the shock to get for all those bikes.
These knees, that's
cool.
That and the Fox floaters. I was another thing.
Yep. Just so all you guys know that are watching, Anthony got it's a 79 KTM 400. What's it? An MC 400. MC 400. which I mean, what a bike! What a bike! I remember seeing those things when I was working at Cliff Cycles back in like '85, and they're a KTM dealer, and they would have a couple of old KTM's in the corner, and I'd look at them and be like, "Holy crap, that thing looks like a monster! I'm afraid of it," you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a big bike. You know, I mean, just the engine alone, it's a monster and a half.
Yeah.
You
Did
know,
you have you ridden it?
80, no, I haven't even started the thing yet. Just with everything going on, I went on to the night shift at my job.
Yep.
So I'm running shuttles, so I really haven't had time to even wheel it outside and start it yet. But I mean, it's done.
That's cool.
You know, I'm kind of going by what the guy told me. That it ran great, and you know,
Yep.
he raced it over at Unadilla, which was good. So,
which is
everything is there.
Where we're headed.
Where we're headed. Yeah. Yep. The only thing that kind of funky with that bike was a lot of guys were telling me that the engine was a 5-speed, and then the GS's was a 6-speed. So when I bought the bike from him, he gave me a box of parts, and I was going through everything, and he ended up swapping out the bottom end to a GS. So I got a 6-speed.
So you got a 6-speed in it. Dude, that's cool.
Which is kind of cool, you know. And
yeah.
The other thing that I found really cool is that it was a straight on the shifter shaft. It's a straight shaft that goes all the way across.
Yeah.
And you could put a shifter on your right side if you're trail riding, so you could use either both feet to shift the bike.
That's cool. That's
so
very
that was
cool.
something different that you know, I've never seen before, and that was really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I've never. I mean, that's interesting. That's very interesting. I mean, I've seen some weird shit. Like, did you have any experience with the old Can-Ams and the Bombardier engines, the ones that were the rotary valves?
No, not Bombardier, none of those. I've seen them, but I never had any experience digging into them.
So I actually had one. I had a 125. It was an 82 125 qualifier, but it was pretty much the same. Everything was the same, the setup and everything. And the shifter was inside of the kickstart shaft. Like the kickstart shaft is hollow and comes out and rides over the shifter shaft. So you'd always end up breaking the freaking Kickstarter shaft, you know, right at the case where it's hollow coming over the shifter shaft. And it's like, God damn, this sucks. You know, in order to replace it, you had to take the whole thing apart, and it was just a pain in the ass. So needless to say, my bike got bump started a lot. When I stopped at the top of a hill because when I did get it fixed, I didn't want to do it again.
I was going to say, Jim, that was probably a 1-year ride, was it?
It was. I don't even think it made it 1 year. I don't think it made it 1 year. I started. That was my first real dirt bike, and it was a 125 qualifier with a headlight and this gigantic cannon for a muffler on it. And we started running at the motocross track on the bumps and stuff like that, just because I didn't know any better. I wasn't racing. I just wanted to be like those guys that I saw, you know. And then I jump it in the sand pits, and needless to say, I broke the frame on that sucker maybe like 5 times. Broke the Kickstarter shaft. It actually seized right after I got it. My dad was messing around with the carburetor, and it sucked like a little spring or something into the motor. Went right through the rotary valve and into the motor, which I you know, wasn't supposed to happen, you know. But either way, that bike was fun. It taught me a lot. I learned a lot about riding on it, and I think I made it like 9 or 10 months before I got a leftover or a friend's used 83 KX 125, and that's what I started racing on.
But and then the Team Green became
Team Green. Well, technically, I got that KX, raced it in the 125 novice class in '84. And then in '85, I got a brand new KTM 125 racing out of Cliffs in the amateur class. And we worked on that bike all year long. Could not get that thing to go. I mean, the bike handled great. The suspension was great. But the motor just, it was lacking everywhere. And we swapped back to Cowies the next year, and that was it. From then on out, we were Cowie.
They made their bikes. Actually, my first bike was Kawasaki KV 1974 KV75.
That's cool.
I have that bike to this day.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I had an RD. It was a '74 RD60 Yamaha, a little 2-stroke street bike, and I learned how to ride and shift on it. Had it up until about 3 or 4 years ago, and guy guy looking. I think he gave me like $100 for the thing because it was just absolutely hammered. The transmission was seized up. It was crazy. We rode the wheels off of that bike. Oh, my brother's watching. I rode the wheels off of that bike because I hogged it. I wouldn't let him have it. So he will definitely attest to that and talk about how he never really got to ride that bike.
I figured that was a shared bike.
It was supposed to be a shared bike. You know, I always thought
it just became Jim's bike.
It did. I always thought that I shared it. You know, I was like, all right, I'm going to ride it for 3 hours. I'm going to bring it back. You got about 10 minutes on it, then I'm going to go back out and ride it for another 3 hours. You know, he was always a good sport about it because a lot of times he was, you know, learning how to play. He's practicing on his guitars, or he was into BMX big time too. So we had a quarter pipe in the front yard. So he was riding, or he'd be off with his friends on their bicycles, and my friends were on motorcycles. So it was kind of one of them deals where it naturally fell into place. And then once we started getting bigger bikes, things kind of changed. But yeah, you always got those first bikes, you know, and it's like I kind of was hesitant when I was getting rid of it, but I'm like, you know what, this thing's just sitting in the corner. We need room. My kids were getting bigger. They were playing all kinds of sports and stuff. So we had all kinds of hockey equipment. My oldest son played a lot of golf too. So he had 2 or 3 sets of golf clubs that he had gone through. And it's just one of those things like, man, we got to get rid of some shit. And that happened to be one of the things that, all right, if I got to get rid of their stuff, I'm going to get rid of some of my stuff too, you know?
Oh yeah.
But
got to make room in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we didn't know that, you know, years later we'd make a room for more vintage bikes, but hey, it is what it is.
That's all right, because they're just going up in value. So that's like the CD.
Yeah.
That's better than a CD. I was really shocked to see how much some of these bikes were bringing at that vintage show.
Isn't it crazy?
It was absolutely absurd. I couldn't believe it because, you know, like I got a group of guys that started racing motocross in the early 70s. They own a bicycle shop, and they helped me out. They sponsored me, Bike Brothers.
Yeah.
And you know, like they were telling me the prices. What an RM 390 was back in the day, and you know, they would go into the shop and buy 2 of them for like $1,500. Yeah,
absolutely.
And you know, now it's just like if you got one that's clean and the tank's not all smashed in and the seat's not all ripped up, you're getting $3,000 to $4,000 for that bike.
If you look at, you know, Marketplace now and you start seeing what's listed out there, dude, you look at those KX 500s, man, because those bikes are still so universally. You can use them for anything. You could put flywheel weights on them. You can ride them anywhere. And in the 2004 is just as good in capable hands as some of the newer bikes to some of these guys. And it's amazing to see how much money, you know, a 20-year-old motorcycle can go for in Marketplace.
And still going for an whole value.
Right.
You know, like the Honda 250, CR 250s.
All those mid-90s. Holy cow.
The 90s are huge. I mean, I couldn't believe actual restored 90s bike all day long, $3,000.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, did you see? There's some cool ones out there. Jeff and Billy Martell, their Hondas are just phenomenal. They are spotless. You could eat up the bikes. Showroom condition.
Yeah.
Showroom condition.
And that was another great years. The 90s. You know, because you couldn't break the bike.
Right.
It ran. You know what I mean? The bikes ran. You didn't have to worry about the frames. You didn't have to worry about the wheels.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I'll tell you.
I think 90s motocross was probably some of the best times.
Oh yeah.
You know, at least me growing up, I'm a young guy to you guys, so I got to see the 90s, and I think it was a really good time for motocross and the whole evolution. You know, when Henry put that first the 400 on the board, that first 4-stroke.
90. Let's see. He did that.
It was 98, right?
I think it was 98 that he won the title, and that was on the production one. But the full works bike,
97,
it was in 97, the white one, and I believe that's the year he won the Vegas Supercross on it and became the first 4-stroke to ever win a Supercross. And I want to say it was 97. I know I talked to him a couple of times about it. 96, he was still on, I think, on the two-stroke 250s, and he talked about the whole deal in a couple of his interviews about how he came to ride that four-stroke, and I know that he's told us a couple of times about, they had some issues with it that night in Vegas, but they got them straightened out with, I think he said, the fuel pump and things like that. But I mean, you think about, dude, the technology that has changed since then for the way that the bikes are now. I mean, shit. I mean, I look at my brother's 350 KTM 350, and it's got freaking traction control on it, and it's like it's a 2017, so that bike's even old now.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a sore subject for Keith Johnson, but look at the Cannondales.
Look at those Cannondales.
The Cannondales, excuse me, the Cannondales. How advanced they were.
Yeah,
and if they could just get that, that engine right, they probably would have took off.
Yeah, absolutely, and granted, they had issues with that bike that the weight was too much, and that there was a whole bunch of things wrong with it, but some of the stuff that was taken away from that bike, the ideas that have made it to the showroom floor on the new bikes. Look at the backwards engine. Look, YZ450. YZ450, same thing. I'm just kind of like scrolling through too and reading some of the comments as we go, and Phil Petras said his 96 CR250 was his favorite bike that he ever had. I was like, those bikes were so good. But
that was a great running bike, yeah.
Do you remember Jeremy? Jeremy was riding those Hondas because he was on a Honda all the way through there. And I think he was running a 93 frame, if I remember right. 93 frame in the 93, 94, 95, and 96 seasons. He liked that frame so much that they kept building the bikes around that frame. I don't know what the differences were.
Just what McGrath was doing.
Right.
Right. I mean, even back when he was riding with Peyton from Peak, when he had Peak Honda.
Yep.
With Pro Circuit, he put the bikes on the board, and everybody talks still to this day about those Peak bikes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking back, Joe Orlando, he had a KD90, 125, numerous KDXs, KLX 250, 400, couple of KX 250s, and KX 125s. He was a Cowie guy all the way. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was the 1982 125 amateur champ in NESC, or one of them. I'm not sure which series it was, but I know that he also killed it in the vintage, in the Netra stuff. But it's like those Cowies are just they're kick-ass bikes. It's like,
oh, absolutely. I
love my Cowies.
Two KX 250,
and
that bike was absolutely amazing. The only thing that I had a hard time with was with my boots. That the side panel number plates.
Yeah.
The boots would get hung up inside of the plate itself.
Yep.
So either you cut them out, or you did something to your boot, like you tape your boots to your pants.
Yeah.
So this way they wouldn't get stuck in the panels.
Yeah.
Other than that, that was a great running bike, and I mean, even at the time I had it was I want to say it was like around 2007.
Yeah.
And I was keeping up with all the four strokes then.
That's cool. That's really cool. I mean,
yeah, that was the bike.
All my 250s. I had I had an 87 that I started racing in the 250 class on the KX. I had an 88, an 89, 92 91s, and a 92. And I mean, obviously the 89 was my favorite. That's the one that I wanted to rebuild. But the 90 I had the most success on. But those motors were just they were powerhouses back then, and it was so different because the odd year Kawasaki's always had like a nice, smooth, torquey, very friendly, power band. And then the even year Cowies were like these explosive monsters sometimes. And it was just like the 90 that I had, it was like riding a 125, but just massive amounts of power. Your power was, when I say riding a 125, it was like, it was either on or it was off. But when it was on, holy hell, hold on to that thing.
Yeah, it was a light switch, almost like riding a Banshee.
Yep, absolutely. Cool, man. Well, hey, we've been on for like 45 minutes already. Holy shit.
That's awesome.
That's cool. So, so let's see, cause you're leading it, and I know that you don't watch it too much. I watch all the qualifying. I watch the practices. I usually make my picks, and then I try not to go back and edit them. I just go with what my gut tells me. But
That's the best thing to do.
I tell you what, a couple of times I've swapped a couple of people around, and I've gotten my ass handed to me the last couple of weeks. And it's just like, holy cow! I was up in, I think, 16th place at one point. And now I'm in. I don't even know if I'm in the top 100.
We doing anything for the winter?
We should. I haven't.
At the end of the year.
I haven't really thought about it yet, but I think there's enough people out there that I might have to talk to some people and see if we can round up some prizes. You know.
I think like something like some kind of give back, like St. Jude's Children's Hospital or something like that. No.
Yep.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool. That'd be really cool. See if we can do something and get it done.
Whoever wins, just that goes into the group and.
Yep. Yeah, because that group is just our group. rmfantasysx.com for you guys watching. And the group is old men that used to race. So hopefully you're in it. If you're not, it's going to get locked out pretty quick. There's 147 people in it now, I think. But that way, locking it out as we get deeper into the season, if somebody, all of a sudden is playing in a different group and they have, 600 points and they're going to come in and join our group, they're going to instantly take over the lead, and that's not really fair.
No, you got to be in the beginning.
Yep. I left it open long enough so that people could find it and join it if they wanted to, as long as they've been playing every week. So we'll see. I'm going to close it out and cut it right now. But
John Lebeck does that. I work for the AMA.
Oh, Phil Petras, he says fact. He raced the 97 KX 250 and it was explosive. He had his best results in that bike. That throws my theory completely off. It must have happened after I retired because my last KX was 92. So if John Levesque and Scott Buxton have it any other way, they're gonna get me back on a 2020 KX, but it'll be a 450.
Yeah, it's my understanding. They're a really good bike. That new motor that they came out with the 19.
Yeah,
definitely made a lot of different tweaks to it, and it's a really good bike. The only thing that I would like to see is Cali come out with the Electric Star 250. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's coming. I mean, you think it has to. Honda's got them. Yamaha's got them. Granted,
KTM's right there.
KTM's got it.
Suzuki and Cali, they're the only ones right now that are kind of behind the ball.
Yeah, interesting fact though. I don't know if you saw it this week, but there's a couple of things. I think it's 3 laps down does stats, and I'm not sure if it was them or somebody else that did it. But the bikes that made the main, the bikes in the main in the 450 class, Honda took the top spot. I think they said there were 7 Hondas in the 450 main. Second manufacturer was Suzuki, dude. There was 4 Suzukis in the 450 main. And it's like, you think about it, all 3 of the HEP guys made it, and then there was Brock on the JGR bike. So Suzuki was well represented in the main, and they didn't do that. They made the main. That's crazy to think how good those guys are, and it's like the bike's definitely
a bike for bad ratings.
Yep.
That just goes to show you exactly how much time and technology they're really putting on those factory bikes to get those guys up there.
So I mean, the JGR bike, obviously they got the resources, and it is a factory bike, but who's building the HEP bikes?
Right.
Who's building the HEP bikes? Who knows?
It's a hidden secret.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a hidden secret, and I bet they'll release that information, maybe 10 years down the road. But even to this day, they still won't talk, like Kawasaki won't talk about James Stewart's 125.
No.
In 2003, they still won't talk about that bike.
Yep.
They just said I injured.
Yep. And it's funny. I saw a thing that it was an article on Brett Metcalf's YZ 125 and 05, and it said this is the last factory 125 that was ever raced. And the last factory supported 125 that was raced. And I know a lot of people jumped on board and they were like, no, that was James Stewart. It's like, no, it wasn't. In 2005, James Stewart was on a Kawasaki 250 2-stroke against the 450s. But Brett Metcalf raced that 125 in 2005 against all the YZs and all the other 250Fs. It was truly the last factory supported 125 that was out there.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was the first year with the aluminum frame too.
Yep. That bike had some power. I mean, it's for all purposes, it's still the same bike. Maybe some small changes here and there, but those YZs, that should tell you something. It was so good back then that people still want to buy them. They run them in motocross. They run them in the woods. They run them everywhere. Those bikes can easily be made competitive now. All these years later.
Oh yeah.
It's incredible.
Oh yeah. I mean, and then you get the right builder too. Like you take Eric Gore.
Yep.
Mean, he did magic on my old Porsche CR 125 that I have, and a lot of you guys ain't familiar with that bike. It was a 1 year only RC power valves that was electronic controlled.
Yeah.
So it really was on the bottom of the totem pole. I think it ranked like fifth out of the whole lineup for the 125s.
That's cool.
It had the worst power, but it had the best handling out of all of them.
Yeah.
So you ship the motor out to a good builder, and now you got a good engine, and you're keeping up with everybody else.
Yep. And you know what? You see all those guys. I mean, Tom Morgan's putting out some serious motors. And we had talked about it a little bit earlier back when, the early bikes from my era, they either handled or they had motor or, they had a suspension. Nothing was always, together in a package. Those were the times that, motor builders really honed their craft and became famous for all intents and purposes. I mean, Dave Miller and those Kawasaki's, those DMC Kawasaki's of back then, the 125s were ridiculously powerful and fast. Everybody who had a KX 125 was trying to figure it out and either copy some of Miller's mods or have Dave do it himself, and I remember just stupid little things like they had the Kips chambers on the sides of the engine, and you built a spacer that was like 8 millimeters. Not even 8, probably like 5 millimeter spacer that just increased the volume of that side chamber on the Kips system, and you got more torque out of your bike, And it was cool. My old man would build them. He would make shims, and we would stack them up and figure out, the depth of what we wanted to tune the power of the bike, and then we'd silicone them together and put them in, and it was a spacer. It was like, holy crap, man, this actually works.
Yeah, you did whatever you could to try to figure out how to get more power out of the bike.
Yep.
And that's I think that's like one of the coolest things about racing back then versus today. Today you go to any bike shop, pick a color.
Yeah.
You're equal with the next. Back then it wasn't like that. Like you really had to build a motor, or you have to build suspension, whatever it was, in order to get the bike to go.
Yeah, and you know what? You worked on the bike so much, and you did so much with them. You got to really know the bike inside and out. I know Tyler McAdams is doing. He does the New England Riders Corner podcasts. He's doing a feature. He just fired up a YouTube channel, and he's going to do like features on different bikes and different mods on it. And we were talking about he wants to record with my 989 Kawasaki. And I'm thinking, man, I mean, the little tricks, the things like, putting an extra washer behind the small little plate where the left foot peg bolts to, just because they tend to wear, and that's how you can get the play out of it. Seat covers, pulling a seat cover. You don't use the old ones. You have to, these days now, you need a form-fitted one, because the foam, when you pull it so tight that the wrinkles come out, the foam distorts and it doesn't match the tank properly. It's just like little things that you remember that you were messing around with all those years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, which is really cool, because this is something, like I have said before, a young guy like myself that should be a part of the community on this end of things. This way you pass it down to the next generation.
Yeah.
And because one day they're going to go, well, who made that, or who did that? And then nobody's going to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and you think about it, the bikes today, in 10 years, it'd be like, oh, you remember when I changed that fuel mapping? It's like, that's kind of where we're at with motorcycles now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was like, even going on the gate, throwing your hand up. Most of these kids today that are, in a big bike class, they probably don't even know what that means.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
You know, that was that. What,
Yep.
5 seconds or 15 seconds, whatever it was, to get the spark plug out. A new one that they waited for you.
How about like some of those old air cool bikes too? You know, where it's just like, yeah, just get that plug wrench in there, fire that plug out, put a new one in, and go. You're ready to rock. You got another moto in you. Oh, all right, dude. Well, I think I've taken up a bunch of your time tonight. I appreciate it. It's we're up to like 55 minutes.
That's awesome.
That's
Jim,
cool.
thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it all. And
yeah, no problem, man.
It was a good time.
It's cool, and hopefully, I'm going to try to do a little bit more of these. I just called it, Friday Night Live bench race session, and bring somebody on the phone, and we'll just talk. We'll just talk moto for an hour. So, if anybody else wants to be a part of it and wants to come on and just talk, get your opinions out, your views, talk about whatever, we can do it. Before I sign off, though, there is one thing. We have a Supercross party that we're co-hosting with the studios at Federal Hills Home Theater down in Warwick. That's going to be for the Indy round on March 14th, 6 to 9. I have the event on the Old Men That Used to Race page. We have E-Bikes 508 is coming down with displays and demos. I have Tom Erdman from ZR Throttles. He's going to be there with his display and demonstrator throttle. I know Chris Seabass can't make it, but he's sending somebody from Evans Power Sports Coolant down. And anybody else wants to get in on it and they want to put a display down there with us, please reach out to either myself or Matt Lucetti at Federal Hills Home Theaters, and we can make it happen. $10 cover to get in the door. I've already heard people talking about getting hotel rooms to come down and hang out with us and watch the Supercross. All high-end audio video equipment, cash bar with beer, wine, and snacks. Come on down. 6 to 11 on March 14th at the studios, Federal Hills Home Theater. So with that being said, Anthony, I appreciate it. Thank you for spending some time talking moto and just, hanging out. And
absolutely, and thanks again for having me a part of the group. And it's really great that you created this group and got us all back together. And I met so many nice people and great people out of this. And keep it going that way. And I'm definitely looking forward to our events this year. It's going to be a good time. Definitely going to have some big barbecues and
you know it. Hey, guess who just checked in? Paul Cornell. He literally just joined.
You gotta wait now, buddy.
He's gonna have to go back and click on the beginning and listen. He's gonna. I know he's gonna come on with me at some point. So we have before. We'll do it again.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. I'm gonna click the end live video. I want to thank everybody for watching out there. Y'all have a great Friday night. Once again, this was Anthony Apel. He is a friend of ours from out in the New York area, and we're looking forward to a good 2020. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks, guys.
I'm just clicking the end buttons now. There we go.